You heard me? Hear me now? Can you hear me now? All right, all righty. Okay, come on, Brother Joe. Good evening. I know all these back row Baptists. Where we at today? Come on up here. Come on. In case I need to reach out and touch you, come forward. Put that finger. Come down. Come on down. Come on. Okay, I gotta remember I had a camera here, so I can't come all the way back there. How is everyone tonight? I would like to welcome you back to week number 5. Can you believe we have been at this for 4 weeks already? And here we are for the 5th round. All righty, all right. So, what are we talking about? What is this class about? Let's see. What's the class about? And learning to trust what? What are we talking about? What's the broad topic? Estate planning, absolutely, absolutely. And we have talked about a lot of different things. So I got to welcome the people out there that have not been here. We're going to welcome our virtual audience to Learning to Trust Estate Planning, which is a 6-week series on estate planning. For those of you that I have not had the pleasure of meeting, y'all know how I do it. I am Dr. Sabrina Edmon Williams, educator, author, and investor, opening minds and closing contracts. I am so noted. I am so noted. I am so excited and delighted to be here because God laid something on my heart. I didn't quite see this class going like it's going to taking the direction it's going to take. So y'all just give me a little grace. I took a few liberties because I think there's something we need to talk about. Okay. So again, you know I have to start this way. I am a PhD, not a JD. I actually had a conference today with a JD. I almost got myself in trouble. I look, Pastor Joe, I was talking the talk and walking the walk this past Saturday. And when I got finished, you know how we always say they watching? They were in the audience. They rushed that stage. Well, I didn't get in trouble, but I did get a phone conference today, and we had a very good conversation. And the reality is, even with that conversation, we could both agree that same thing happens over and over and over. You know, the story doesn't change. We die, we don't leave our affairs in order, we leave our families in turmoil, and it doesn't matter who it is. The only thing that changes is the name of the family, but the story stays the same. Stays the same. So we have been talking about estate planning, and by now I have some great students. So we all know that estate planning has 2 parts to it, right? We do it to plan for the distribution of our assets after death, as well as while we're living in case we become incapacitated. Look at that. My daddy learned a big word, incapacitated. I heard ya. Check my daddy out. Okay. So for those who have not been with us, or maybe those that are in our online audience, we have talked for 4 weeks now on various topics. So we're not going to tell you everything that we talked about because we got all that stuff on video. So go check out the replays. Week 1, we talked about getting organized so that we can get our plan together. Week 2, we took inventory because you got to know what you're passing on, right? Week 3, we talked about advanced care planning in case you become what, Daddy? Incapacitated. All right. And then last week we talked about final expenses because it is very, very expensive to put someone away. Okay. So we got a plan for that, right? Somebody said, I know that's right. I know that's right. All right. This week I'm going to throw you a curveball. Throw you a curveball. I want to talk about this concept called succession. Succession and succession planning. Okay? Upon the completion of tonight's session, I'm hoping that you will know a few things. I'm hoping that I do, as they say, a good enough job that you understand what succession planning involves and why it even matters, why it's important for both us and those that we love. How succession planning or the lack of succession planning could actually impact your ability to create and leave generational wealth behind. Okay? And we're going to talk about why succession extends beyond money. It's not just about the money. Okay? Then we'll go into some resources. How about that? Everybody okay with that? All right. Let the church say what? Amen. All right. Let's get into this. So succession. Now I got to see how many people actually read the book because I know y'all been waiting for me to get to the book. Where do I talk about that? Succession. What chapter? Let's see. Chapter what? Chapter 1. Chapter 1. I start the book off talking about this concept of succession. Now, although we're not in England, you know, over in Britain, about 3 years ago in 2022, Queen Elizabeth, after 70 years of serving on the throne, she finally passed, okay? She became a queen when she was a young woman, right? Young person. So 70 years she served. And when she passed, something interesting happened, Bishop. Something interesting happened. They didn't take a vote. There was no discussion. There was no debate. And guess what else there wasn't? No probate. No debate and no probate. Charles instantly ascended to the throne. Think about that. Mama just died and you instantly become the king. That means something happened. It's called succession. That's called succession. There was a plan in place. He always knew he would one day be king after his mom passed on. Well, he had a brother. Anybody know his brother's name? Everybody knows Andrew's name right about now. Everybody knows Andrew's name right now. Things not going too well for Andrew right now. Right? But Andrew didn't ascend to the throne. Charles ascended to the throne, right? That's succession. Succession planning is something that we don't really talk about, or we don't really think about this this term in terms of estate planning per se. But I want to introduce this because I want to open minds. We got to start thinking about some things and why succession really matters, particularly in our families. We're going to talk about that concept of succession. Now, typically when we think about succession, we think about the workplace, right? So in the workplace, what does it look like? It looks like a change of leadership, right? This person that in charge is going away or they pass on, and somebody has to come behind them and pick up the roles and the responsibilities and keep moving things forward. Well, guess what? Same thing happens in the family. It happens in the family. Now, what does the Bible say about succession? You know, we want to speak where the Bible speaks and we want to be quiet where the Bible is quiet, right? Now, we already know that the Bible does not implicitly talk about estate planning per se, but it gives us a lot of examples of people that did things to prepare to distribute their assets after they were gone, right? But does it say anything about succession, Bishop? Does it say, it don't use that word succession per se, does it? It don't use that word succession, but come on, where my Bible readers at now? Jim gave the invitation last week. He said just don't set that clock back and you'll be on time for Sunday school. So some of these folks need to come to Sunday school, Bishop, because we're gonna talk about succession. Now, if you read the Bible, let's go back and let's look at this example. What happened when Moses? Y'all remember Moses with the rod? What happened when Moses? Who did he do, Jim? Joshua. He had a successor. Joshua, right? Okay. What about that favorite king? That little shepherd boy. Bishop said, David, he knew it. You can tell who the preacher is in the room. David. David. Well, who did it? Solomon. He had a successor. Okay, well, y'all read the Old Testament. Let's see if y'all read the New Testament. Who had a successor in the New Testament? Anybody? Who prepared some people before they left the earth? Absolutely, didn't he? And he didn't just prepare one person to succeed him. How many did he prepare? 12 on one hand, or maybe 13 on the other, huh? He prepared some people. What about that Apostle Paul? Okay, Timothy and who? Timothy and who else? Titus. He had some people that succeeded him. So we have biblical examples of what succession looks like. Succession planning, we have those examples. But what about the family? You know, if you were fortunate enough to be here at New Horizon over the last several weeks, and if they were listening, Bishop, I was listening. Bishop has been talking about roles in the family, knowing what your role is in the family. Well, if everybody has a role and a responsibility within the family, what happens when they're not there to fulfill certain roles and responsibility? Who succeeds them? I want you to think about that. There are certain things in your family that one individual may do. Person is responsible for doing that thing in the family. I'll give you a little example. My son, Kyle, went away. He's here, so I got to use him for, if Tyler was here, I'd use Tyler. Kyle went away to Texas for a while, and one of his chores was to make sure that the trash was gathered up so that on Tuesday mornings and Fridays, the trash would be set out for the trash people, right? Well, when Kyle went away, could we just let the trash collect? Absolutely. Somebody said, I hope not. Absolutely. Somebody had to fulfill that role. And that's just a light example, but you see where I'm going with this, right? Within our families, people have roles. And why is that important? Why is it important for the family? Because oftentimes when we don't designate people to fulfill specific roles, things simply go undone. I want you to think about that. Why do they not get done? Because we never identify anybody to take over and assume that role. It's important for us, first of all, to know our roles. Sometimes roles are given voluntarily and involuntarily, right? We assume roles. So it's important for us to know these things. There are just certain things that you know. And I always say this, well, if I don't do it, it won't get done. I never really realized the truth of that statement. Think about it. There are just certain things if you don't do, because that's part of your role in the family, it doesn't get done. So it's very important that we think in terms of succession, how our families will continue to function. That's differently than who's going to get our assets when we pass. Y'all with me? Y'all tracking? That's totally different. And that's why I said God put something different in my spirit to give tonight. This whole thing about estate planning, it goes deeper than just the money part of it. When a person dies in your family, when that grief sets in, you're not necessarily just thinking about the money. You're thinking about the role that that person played in the family, in your life. So we got to think about succession. Now, when it comes to our legacies, one of the reasons why succession is so important in succession planning is because there are individuals that do certain things. I'm going to give you an example. Anybody else besides me in here have an Aunt Mary? I had an Aunt Mary. Mary's a common name. I thought everybody had an Aunt Mary. I had an Aunt Mary. My Aunt Mary was the glue that held the family together. My Aunt Mary. If there was a reunion, Aunt Mary planned it. If there was something going on in the family, Aunt Mary knew it. If there was something to be done, all you had to do is call Aunt Mary. She was there. Aunt Mary passed away several years ago. And honestly, we've tried, but there has not been anyone that really can take Aunt Mary's place. Nobody really has stepped into that role. In fact, I got a text message earlier today. I got it 3 times from 3 different people in my family. So it's time for the cousins to come together. Let's spend some time together. See, Aunt Mary never would have let that happen because Aunt Mary always had us together. But that was the role. That was the role she played in the family. And oftentimes, with our families and our legacies, one of the things that we lose when we have someone like a Aunt Mary is we lose a lot of our history. We lose a lot of the family history. When I was growing up, on both sides of my family, both my maternal side and my paternal side, we had these things, and I know it's a foreign concept now, but they were called family reunions. I knew all of my first cousins. I knew most of my second cousins and a good many of the third cousin. And then them folks that I still ain't figured out why we call them cousin. I knew them too. I just know them. Because we got together, we knew our family's history. And that is so rich in our culture. But we lose that oftentimes when the historian in the family dies. I had a cousin, Magaline. Her name was Magaline. And she could tell you every funchess that there was. She knew that family history. Knew the family history. But what I noticed is once Cousin Mag passed, whenever we would get together, we would struggle trying to figure out exactly who. Now, how was that person related? We lose a lot when we don't have those succession plans, when that's not passed on. You know, the book that has the family lineage in it is not documented and passed on. Succession. See, we lose some things. Succession planning is important because we have to ensure that those that we loved are properly cared for. Now, last week I asked you about a movie, and y'all just like said, yeah, y'all don't watch TV. Y'all don't watch the movies. I'm going to try again. Give y'all a chance to redeem yourselves. Soul Food. Did anybody see Soul Food? Even Bishop, Bishop saw Soul Food. Look, everybody remembers. Okay, so here's the test. Remember in Soul Food, what was the thing that everybody was so preoccupied with? Well, not just the Sunday dinner. What were they trying to find? The money. They knew Big Mama had some money somewhere stashed in that house. They knew it. But the whole movie, they were pretty much preoccupied with finding the money. Man, there was also a character in the movie. Anybody remember the character that was Big Mama's brother? Uncle Pete. You watched Soul Food, and you watched it more than one time, didn't you? I know, all the time. Uncle Pete. Now think about this. And this speaks to something that most of us can relate to, these kinships and these family networks that we have within our community. Uncle Pete lived in the house with Madia and her children. He lived in the house with them. Now, if you read my book, my mother, I talk about my mother and her talking about her childhood, how she says there's not a time that she can remember where there was not extended family in the house, whether it was the grandmother, the uncles, the cousins, somebody else other than what's called the nuclear family, meaning your biological father, mother, and the sibling. Somebody else was in the household with them. So I go back to Soul Food. Uncle Pete was in the house. And if you remember the movie, well, Big Mama died during the movie, didn't she? She passed on. So now they got to figure out not only where the money is in the house, what's going to happen to the house, but what else? Who's going to take care of Uncle Pete? Because if y'all remember, Uncle Pete was a little something with himself. He wasn't the one that everybody was raising their hand saying, I'll take Uncle Pete. No, not even for the check, Bishop. They wasn't signing up for that one. No. So when it comes to succession planning, we have to think in terms of those type of relationships and those type of responsibilities. When your mother passes on, who takes care of Uncle Pete? That's succession. That's a role. That's a responsibility that somebody has to bear. I want you to think about someone that may be disabled in some way. Think about that. When you leave behind that type of responsibility, that's on your mind. Who's going to succeed you in taking care and making sure that the people that we love are okay? Or in a case where you have young children, who takes on that responsibility? Succession. It's not just about what we have financially. When it comes to this thing called estate planning, we got to think far beyond that. What happens? Now, if you know us, y'all know we have some issues sometimes, some situationships sometimes, don't we? Because I think statistically only about 29% of us are married. So a lot of times we have situationships, relationships, or whatever you want to call them. Right. And sometimes those situationships may result in children. So you may have children from a previous relationship. You may have domestic partners. You may even have situations that end in divorce, unfortunately. But all of these things require some level of thinking about successorship. Even if you are divorced, if you had children, what happens if you're not here as it relates to the children and making sure that their lives are not upended? when you're not here. You have domestic partners, we can go look at the data, we can go look on TV, we can go look in our families, we can go look anywhere. We know how this turns out a lot of times. And these may be people that you have been in relationship with for years and years and years. You may want to make sure that they are properly cared for. But what is the succession plan? How do we ensure that? How do we ensure that? And especially, I'm talking to my men here especially. We talk about kids from previous relationships. We have a responsibility to make sure that those kids are properly cared for. We have a responsibility to do that, my brothers. Businesses. Statistically, Black businesses struggle. You make it 18 months, you've done well. You make it 3 years, you've done really well. 5 years, you're on your way. That's just the reality for our small Black businesses. But in some instances, there are families that have created businesses that have been around for years. They've done well, been around for years. But as soon as mama dies or grandmother dies, things get a little shaky. And you know why? Many times it's because there was really no succession plan. No succession plan in place to ensure that the business continued. Now, a lot of times the younger people go to college, get a degree, and they go on somewhere else. They don't come back and work in the family business. They don't do that. Now, I had an experience a few years ago. I was traveling, and I can't quite remember where I was traveling to, but what I do remember is getting on the plane, and I sat next to this young Caucasian gentleman who had on an Auburn t-shirt, and I'm a Mississippi State Bulldog, so you know that caught my attention. So we're sitting there. I think he was sitting in the first seat, and I may have been sitting in the third seat, so we had a seat in between us, but we kind of leaned in and started a conversation. So it went something like this. After we talked smack, okay? You gotta add that part. After we talked smack. So I asked him what he was studying in school, and he said, well, I am getting my mechanical engineering degree. I said, oh, okay. And I said, that's interesting. I'm an engineer myself, so we talked about that. And then he says, well, my dad owns his own business. He owns an HVAC and electrical business. He said, so I'm getting my mechanical engineering degree, and my other brother is getting his electrical engineering degree because we're going to take over the business one day. And then we got a third brother. We just going to figure out, we probably make him the janitor or something. But the point is, the plan was to do what? Go back and work in the family business to ensure that it continued. But oftentimes, our businesses do not continue. They don't continue because we don't have a succession plan in place. Now, let me give you an example close to home. I'm from a small town. Most of you guys know that are in the room. Those in the viewing audience may not know. I'm from a small town in South Mississippi, about 70 miles from here, called Prentice. Did I get that good? Prentice, like I said that. Prentice. Okay. In my hometown, we have 2 funeral homes. 2 funeral homes. Small town, but 2 funeral homes. Let me fix that. We have 2 Black-owned funeral homes, okay, because we have more than 2. Now, one of those funeral homes has done really, really well. When I say really well, they took the foundation that their grandfather laid, and they have built on that foundation. They have expanded the facilities. They've added a chapel onto the funeral home. They've even purchased another piece of property to have a standalone chapel. So they've grown. And when you go to services, you can see any number of the family members working the funeral services. I had a succession plan to continue the business, to grow the business. But now there's another funeral home. I said we had two, right? There's another funeral home in my hometown, and they're still there, and they still do okay. But that growth has not been there. And really, even when you think about the successors, you know what I'm talking about. When you think about the successors, well, succession, let me just say it like this. The succession plan, it's obvious, was not in place. Now, I'm putting it nicely. Just was not in place. So you see, and here's the thing about that. In that particular industry, we know that there's always business. So both of them should be booming because there's always business. But you see how vision and planning, proper planning, yield one result with one business entity and a totally different result with another. Succession planning. Proper succession planning ensures estates transfer properly. How many times do we see it, you guys? Y'all know just like I know. Pastor Joe over here having heartburn. Look, I saw him. I had that moment where he just thought back in his mind. Somebody passes on, and people just lose their mind fighting over the property. So was there any thought along the way about succession? Who is going to succeed me as the manager and the owner of this property? Who's going to make sure that that's done and that it always continues to transfer properly? Remember, I said we all have a role to play, but these are conversations that we don't have enough in our families. Nobody understands that that's someone's role. That's somebody's responsibility to make sure that we are protecting, in some instances, what our grandparents built. And it's not getting done. Succession planning to ensure your family estate is properly protected. How many times do folks lose properties because nobody wants to pay the property taxes? Where was the succession plan? Whose responsibility is it to make sure that the taxes get paid? Now, I got to start right here, and I got to go back. Let me go backwards. My grandfather, they called him Preacher Solomon. And no, he wasn't a preacher, and I have no idea why they called him Preacher Solomon. Went all the way to the third grade in school. Third grade education. Had 8 children of his own. Reared any number of other children. My mother says there was always someone living in their home, extended family. But even with limited education and a huge family to take care of and to feed, he was still able to get an estate. Got his 40 acres and his mule. 40 acres and his mule. And the thing is that boggles my mind, you guys, and I want y'all to think about this. With a third grade education and 8 mouths to feed, 8 children, plus yours and your wife, and however many other people that were in your home, he was still able to somehow make sure those property taxes got paid. He never lost the property to property taxes. One individual with a third grade education. Now fast forward 2 generations later, and you have about 30 of us with all kind of good education. And then you ask, who's going to pay the property taxes? And what do we have? Drama. They don't get paid. And what happens? Before you know it, we look at the newspaper and that property is listed in the paper, and next thing you know, sold to the highest bidder. I don't understand it. I don't understand us. Let's make that make sense. I don't understand that. If one grandparent or great grandparent can pay the taxes on a piece of property and they have 10 descendants, you mean now that the pie is split 10 different ways, it's harder to do than when it was just one person doing it? But succession, there was not a conversation about whose role and responsibility it's going to be to make sure that the taxes are paid. And this is why I say, when we have this mindset that I got to leave all my kids something in the same, that's thinking. You might want to think about the kid that's going to make sure the property taxes get paid and put the money in their hand. Maybe you should. I'm just saying. If you don't want the estate to be lost. Because if you put it in the hands of individuals that are not truly invested in what you spent your life building, it end up like this. Also to the highest bidder. But again, that idea of succession planning, that's why it's so important. That's why it's so important. Now, succession planning, as I say, it's not just about the money, but we also have to think in terms of who has access to the money and who gets the money. One thing that we can all do if we have not done it, go to your banks before we come back next Wednesday and get what's called a POD, payable on death designee on your bank accounts. Whatever bank you bank with, credit union, whomever you bank with. Because here's the thing. When you pass on and you go wherever you're going when you leave here, wherever that may be, one thing I know for sure, two things for certain. You will not need any money. You won't need what's in that bank. But those folks that you leave behind, they gonna need it. Please go put this on your bank account. Someone needs to succeed you. Someone needs to have access. I had a young lady on Monday on my talk show. Y'all didn't listen. If y'all weren't tuned in, it's over there on YouTube. Go back and listen to it. She called in from Maryland. And she talked about losing her brother in 2024 and him leaving behind a $2,500 mortgage. $2,500 mortgage that she was trying to keep going. Now, what he didn't leave behind, guess what? Succession plan or an estate plan. He didn't leave none of that behind. So she had to try to keep that mortgage going. And she said on air just 2 days ago, we are $100,000 in, and we still have not closed out his estate yet. Yes. See what I'm saying? The people that we leave behind, they may need a little help. This is something we can do to help them. And that's an easy fix. Because what happens is if we don't put anybody on there as a payable on death designee and you pass, when they go into the bank and they say, I want my mama's money, I want my daddy's money, guess the bank gonna say, it's frozen at that point. That estate, that account becomes part of your estate at that point. So you can't do it. But we can do what we can do while we on this side. And that's the easy something to do. Okay? That's easy to do. Now, we have referenced this scripture, and we're going to keep referencing this scripture. Good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Now, when we hear that, and initially when we think of that, when I say inheritance, what are we thinking? I'm going to leave behind some money. And Daddy, that's a great thing. I want you to leave behind some, not for just your children's children, but leave me a little bit too. I'll be okay. Leave me a little bit too, okay? Leave me a little bit too. But it's not just about the money. I say it in fun. It's not just about the money that we leave behind. Success is not just about money. Neither is succession. Success is not just about money, and neither is succession. It's really about making sure that those roles and those responsibilities that we have can continue when we are no longer here. And that's a little bit different than just that idea of estate planning. And that makes estate planning that much more important. So with that being said, here's your homework. I got to leave you with 2 thoughts. I want you to think about 2 questions, and I want these to just get in your spirit and just get all over you this week. 2 things. Number 1, what's your succession plan? What is your succession plan? We all have roles that we play in the lives of our families, those that we love. What's the plan? We know we're not here to stay. We're leaving every day. What's the plan for ensuring that when we are no longer here, those things that we're responsible for, whether it's taking care of our Uncle Pete, whether it's making sure that our family's history and lineage continues, and that legacy that our grandparents built is passed on to our children's children. What's your succession plan? And number 2, this one is interesting. Leadership success is measured by the success, not of you, but of who? Of your successor. So it's one thing for us to identify the successor. What are we doing to make sure that they're equipped to be successful? What are we doing to make sure that they are equipped? See, this is the thing that intrigues me, if you will, and troubles me about this whole idea of estate planning, and particularly in using that instrument called a trust. So I can set it up. I can manage it. I can learn all about it during my lifetime. But unless and until I equip others who are going to come behind me to pick up the mantle and carry it forward, what happens? In one generation, a lot of times, everything that we have built is gone. And I can say that as a real estate investor, I tell you, time and time again, we see people that as soon as their parents, their grandparents die, people may have had 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 properties, I don't know, but they pretty much give them away. They see no value, and they give it away. And I have to believe that that's because they didn't have a successor. They didn't have a succession plan. So I want us to really think about that. Who is the successor, and what are we doing to ensure that they are equipped for success? That's how the legacy continues. You think about the Rockefellers and, all these Rothschilds and all these very wealthy families. How did their legacy carry forward? Folks have died, but somebody had to pick up the mantle and keep moving it forward. So I want us to think about that. Again, we know that October was Estate Planning Awareness Month, and we've moved on now. We're into November, but this thing got good to us, so we're going to keep it going. We're going to keep it going. Next week is week 6. We're going to really get into the instruments that are used to transfer our wealth. So we're going to talk about the wills and the trusts and the life estates and the tithes, the transfer on death deeds. We're going to talk about all those instruments next week, okay? The other thing that I spoke with Bishop about, and I'm challenging each one of you. Now, we talked about this platform that we have, the Learning to Trust Estate Planning Made Simple. And I ask you to scan the QR code, go on there, and set up your account. I would like for everybody to make sure they do that. We're going to make sure that you also get your healthcare directive and your power of attorney, financial power of attorney, if you don't have one and you need one. Now, Jim is brilliant, you guys. Jim gave me this great idea. I shouldn't have told him, Jim. I should have just stole it. But anyway, Jim gave me a great idea. So we're going to I'm going to work with Bishop. We're going to try to get us a notary in here next Wednesday. You're a notary? Oh, look at God. Look at God. Look at there. We have a notary in the house. So we have no reason. God is removing all of our excuses. He's moving all these barriers out of our way. There is no reason for us not to get these instruments done and in place, you guys. As I told you when I was here last week, I had an opportunity to help a young lady who had open heart surgery 2 Fridays ago, and she's still struggling. She had a stroke that Sunday after the surgery. She came through the surgery fine on Friday, but by Sunday she had a stroke, and she is still struggling today. So I'm so grateful to God that we were able to go ahead and help her get her financial power of attorney in place, as well as her health care directive, because she is now, what's that word, Daddy? Incapacitated. She's incapacitated. So things, it matters. So we are challenging everybody. Go ahead, go on the platform, get your things done. If you are not able to download the forms and bring them in, please reach out to me. I'm happy to go on and do it for you. And if you don't feel comfortable, or if you need help, I will help you. It literally takes about 4 minutes to get one done and 6 minutes to get the other one done. So there's no reason anybody that's in this room or anybody that's online, if you would like to come and be with us next week, we invite you. We have a notary in the house. We can get this done. We can get it done, okay? Now, on that note, I have some young folks in the room. If you are 18 and older, you need your own healthcare directive and financial power of attorney. So, young folks, Mr. Gyra, Mr. Kyle back there, that Tyler, we need to make sure that we got stuff done, okay? Make sure we got things in place for them, because life happens to them too, right? Life happens, okay? Appointment. If you need a consultation, I'm going to change this, because my 15-minute consultations have literally been going to 45 minutes. Not because of me, though. Not because of me, but somebody laughed like, yeah, right. Okay. But we are happy to do those, and we are getting lots of calls from people all over the country, you guys. So I'm just grateful to God that he is moving in that mighty way. And, of course, we have the book available to you as a resource. We talk about a lot of things in that book, and I want you to use it as a resource. With the holidays coming up again, please use it as part of a stocking stuffer for your families. Get a copy of the book, because sometimes it's hard to have the conversation about death, but you can kind of give them a gentle nudge. Give them a copy of the book, put it in there. And just, you never know. They may crack it open and read it. I mean, it's only about that big, so they very well may read it. So we're going to encourage that. And, again, you know that we are every Monday at 7 a.m. here at the radio station WMPR 90.1, trying to educate, enlighten, inform, and empower our community about the importance of building, protecting, and properly transferring wealth. So we invite you to tune in on Mondays. If you're not able to do so, again, we do stream the show to our YouTube page. So we ask you to go over and listen to the show. We generally try to put some good stuff out there. We spend a month educating our community on the importance of credit and how to repair credit when we need to, the components of the credit score. We spend a month talking about life insurance and the importance of life insurance. And we've just spent the month of October talking about estate planning, absolutely. November, I think I'm going to talk about, I don't know what I'm going to talk about in November. Maybe I'll just continue this conversation, but we also need to start thinking toward the holidays and how to really, really start to invest our money in things of value. Yeah, did that go into anybody's head? Invest our money in things of value. Like instead of buying the Nike shoes, maybe we need to get a little Nike stock. Instead of that Apple phone, a new, 17 is out now. Maybe instead of that 17, we might just go back and get them a 12, 13, one of those, and get them a little stock to go with that, So just having some different type conversations. So with that being said, I'm watching the clock. We didn't set the clock back, did we? Okay, because I'm looking at the clock like I've been talking a long time. Okay, so as we know, we don't do questions here because, again, I am a PhD and not a JD. But we do encourage you. We thank you, first of all, for your support, for those who come and sit in the audience. It feels good having a live audience, you guys. This feels real good having a live audience. So we thank you for being here. We certainly invite you to come back. And as I mentioned, we are going to extend the class by 1 week because we have got to talk about the things that are going on in our world that would impact our estates, that could potentially take our estates away from us. This thing called artificial intelligence, it's a good thing, but it can be a scary thing as well. So we want to talk about that. We're going to do an extended week of the class. I call that the bonus week. We're going to throw that one in. But, of course, you got to come on back. If you can't be here for that week, then check us out online. And then, of course, the week after that, I think, goes into the Thanksgiving holidays. So we're happy to have you here tonight, and we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday.
Great job, and we're certainly thankful for everybody here as well as everybody who is watching online. Once again, we will be back, good Lord willing, next Wednesday. We want to invite people that are within this locale, similar, close, come on over and be with us in person. I also want to encourage folks, once again, do your homework. Get the book, do your homework, okay? And so that you can get everything that is here for you. Don't just be a hearer, but be a what? A doer, okay? So that we end up being so much better. I also want to encourage you to, across this week, to touch one or two other people and send them to the website. But let's talk that up too, okay? Let's talk that up so that other folks can receive as well in terms of that. Once again, particularly to our audience that is watching online, thank you so much for being with us. And we speak the blessings of the Lord upon you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So now that those folks are gone, thank you for all of y'all. Okay.